In a world filled with challenges and opportunities, it's not just about having big dreams, it's about having the right approach to turn those dreams into reality. Whether you're navigating the competitive landscape of business or seeking personal growth, it's all about the approach.
And welcome to our latest episode of The Approach. I'm your host, Dr. Davis McAlister. We call this show The Approach because when I worked in military intelligence, our success and failure depended on taking the right approach. On this show, we discuss aspects of leadership and problem solving and the approaches that have made our guests successful. My guest today is Jesse "Skoob" Blount. His name is Jesse Blount, but everybody calls him Skooby. He is the host of the Undiscovered Entrepreneur Get Across the Start Line podcast. He has been a podcaster for over 3 years, but his background has been in sales and marketing for almost 2 decades. He has 3 areas that he likes to focus on. He has the 4 hurdles of STOP, which are major things that stop us from getting across the start line into our entrepreneur adventure. He also likes to talk about how to find your zone of genius. He helps people find their zone of genius and figure out what puts them in the flow state. And then he also likes to talk about brain health and how it affects our entrepreneur adventure. We can only work as well as our brain will let us, which I have that problem sometimes. So if we take care of our physical brain, it will serve us better. But without further ado, let's bring to the stage Skooby. Welcome.
Bro.
I read a little bit of your bio, but you've got a really interesting background. So take us and tell us how you got started.
When I was growing up, I had all kinds of ideas all the time. I'll give you a little story real quick. When I was 6 or 7 years old, my dad took me to the flea market, gave me $10 and said, just go buy stuff. I was like, okay, cool. So 2 hours later, I came back with 2 armfuls full of stuff and still had $5 left. So I knew right then and there I was a negotiator and I had that capability. But after that, I was like, okay, I got all this stuff. What do I do with this stuff? So I decided to put it out on my lawn, put a couple signs out and have a yard sale. And that went really well. So from there on, I always had these ideas through my head, how to make my own money, how to help other people. You know, I was that Boy Scout that held the door open for everybody. I was the help the old lady across the street kind of guy. So just the combination of those 2 things. And then during COVID, which is probably the start of a lot of stories, during COVID, I had this fantastic idea of starting a karaoke DJ and a music DJ business. And my wife's going, what are you talking about? We're in the middle of COVID. I was like, by the time I get everything ready, COVID will be over. It wasn't. But I had no money. I didn't even have a computer at the time. So, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open a GoFundMe page and everybody's just going to give me money. That certainly didn't happen. I think I only made a couple $100s in a couple months. And that was my mom helping me out. She told me later on. So I was like, okay, instead of throwing my hands up in the air and saying, this isn't for me, it wasn't meant to be, I was like, why didn't it work for me? How come it didn't work? So I started diving deep into why things didn't go the way, how to do crowdfunds and things like that. So one thing I came across while I was doing that research was how to start a podcast, have people follow you, and then do a crowdfund. I was like, okay, cool. I'll start a podcast. I got so deep into the podcasting. I was like, man, this is so awesome. I'm talking to these amazing people. I'm going to put the karaoke thing aside for now, still on the table, but I'm going to put it aside for now and start concentrating on podcasting. In the last 3 years, I've learned so much by talking to so many amazing people during podcasting. And it's been 3 years. I'm at about 215 episodes now, and it's been going amazing since then. So that's my story in a little nutshell thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm not at 215 yet. I do have a lot of videos out there, but not official shows. I haven't hit that point yet, but I'm working fast and furious to get there.
As long as you're working, that's the important part. As long as you're doing something towards that goal, that's the important part.
Yep. Every day do something, working towards it. Where did you grow up at?
I'm originally from California, East Bay, near San Francisco. That's where I lived for the first half of my life there. Very exciting in California. I miss it now. And now I'm currently in Missouri, in Branson. It's a little bit different out here, less building. But coming out here has really changed my perspective on a lot of different things. And it's given me a lot of abilities to be able to do things I was never able to do before. The area out here is so tight knit. The businesses out here, the Chamber of Commerce out here, they're so constant in helping each other that I fit right in. So it was definitely a good move.
With it being a high tourist area, how does that affect you and your business and your day to day?
Okay, so let me give you a little background on what I do. First of all, I actually have two full-time jobs on top of podcasting, on top of doing my editing, on top of editing for another podcast, doing coaching,
Mhm.
and I lead two podcast networks. So I'm a busy guy. But the thing out here, especially in this particular town, is like during the summertime, it's nonstop, just crazy. Then as soon as January 1st hits, the whole town shuts down for 3 months. So what I've done is I go with the flow when it comes to that and working on my podcast. When things start slowing down over here, that's when I really start to dig deep in my podcast and using that extra time that I have to
Yeah.
put out new products, to put out newer types of episodes, to do experimenting and
Mhm.
take that 20% that I usually put aside for myself and make it bigger. And
Yeah.
that's what I do during that low time. During the high time, I still try to do a little bit of stuff, but it's a little
Mhm.
harder to do the cool stuff when you're going
Mhm.
crazy, go doing these other jobs. So but I love it. It's really
Mhm.
amazing to be able to come across. And when you do have, here's another thing too. When you do the busy time, you're coming across more and more people from different walks of life. I've
Yeah.
noticed that a lot of people from all over the US come to Branson, Missouri to vacation. You could talk to them and learn so much from these people that have different businesses and they're coming for vacation from the business that you want to talk to them about. Since I'm a server at probably one of the best barbecue restaurants in town, they all want to come here. So I've come across some amazing people at that time. So it's definitely something awesome to be able to do.
Do you have a crazy story of somebody that you've met or interactions that you've had since you've lived there?
I know I've come across a few famous people. If you don't know who Clay Cooper is, he's a very famous country singer. He
Mhm.
frequents the restaurant quite often. He likes barbecue. A few other actors and singers and things like that, they come out here to do the same thing. They're out here to vacation, but it's so
Yeah.
awesome to be able to see him in different aspects in real life.
Yeah.
You see them on the screen singing or whatever, but it's different when you can walk up to them, shake your hand, and you're awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of different crazy stories that it's hard to pick just one.
Let's dive a little bit into your topic area. So we talked about your three main areas that you get into, and the first one was your four hurdles. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the four hurdles of stop. Now, let me just give you a little background on my podcast so you know where I got them from. So when I first started, I only interviewed brand new entrepreneurs that are just getting started in their entrepreneur adventure. And
Yeah.
we talk about their struggles, their accomplishments, their goals, and things like that. But in the 3 years of me doing that, I come across these four specific things all the time. So I was like, okay, there's something going on here. There's consistency between these four different things. So now I'm concentrating on those. Now, the four hurdles of stop: perfectionism, imposter syndrome, failure, and fear, which a teenager says when you try to tell them something.
Yeah.
But it's to be those four things that came up over and over again. I was stopped because I had imposter syndrome mode. Who am I to be able to do this? I stopped because I was trying to be perfect. And in doing that, being perfect, I stopped doing it because I couldn't get it just right. So I never did anything at all.
Yeah.
And failure and fear always go together. The fear of failure incorporates all four of those hurdles in one main thing. So that's why I do that way, because they're all different types of fears. But unless we
Mhm.
get over these fears to see what's on the other side of these fears, we're not going to get any more further than we are right now.
Yeah.
So that's why I always concentrate on those main four things: perfectionism, imposter syndrome, failure, and fear.
And I would venture to say the majority of people that try to take on entrepreneurship go through all four of those. Do you have a percentage of people that you've worked with that have either you're dealing with all four, or they only deal with a couple of them?
It just really depends on where you are in your entrepreneur adventure. But I
Mhm.
find more times than not that imposter syndrome stops a lot of people. It stopped me for about a year and a half. I was still doing my podcast and that thing, but I was really not breaking out because I felt like, who am I to be doing this? I don't have a degree in anything. I have experience in sales and different sales aspects, but I'm just a dude. So it's like, why am I doing this? It wasn't until I came across a young lady named Sana.
Mhm.
And she told me, why do you own something so negative? Why is it I have imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Change those eyes, change those minds. The imposter syndrome. It's
Mhm.
the imposter syndrome or something else. So you don't own something. And once I stopped owning imposter syndrome, I felt better about myself. I started to break out a little bit more. And ultimately, I ended up on your podcast, Dr. Davis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfectionism, though, you see a lot of people that they hide behind perfectionism. They hide behind that and they end up doing nothing. Oh, I'll wait until the perfect time to release this. I'll wait until the episode's perfect, even though it's going to take me 5 hours to edit and get all the ums and ahs out of it and that kind of thing. So I had John Lee Dumas. I don't know if you know who that is, a very famous podcaster. He told me that a lot of people that experience imposter syndrome, or excuse me, and perfectionism are cowards. They're hiding behind something that they know that they could put out there anytime that they want to, but they won't.
Yeah.
So that's why those two main things. And then, like I said before, failure and fear, they go together for sure. But those two main things, the imposter syndrome and perfectionism, seem to be the two main things that stop us from getting across the star line.
Do you think with the perfectionism, it's an interesting perspective that they're cowards because they hide behind that? But sometimes it's one of those things that, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in a lot of different arenas, and you come across people that they have that perfectionist mentality and they will delay it because it doesn't look exactly like the way they think it should. And then that's where that fear kicks in, is that their fear of judgment, that it didn't look the way they thought it should. And so kind of see that on the entrepreneurial side as well.
I do, but I see it more. Now, you say the word delay a couple of times there when you do that thing. What's another word for delay? Procrastination.
Yeah.
So they procrastinate. It's not ready yet. It's not perfect yet. So I'm just going to keep working on it and wait. Now it's too late. You got to put it out there now. Whatever it is, it's out there now. There are some positive things to being a perfectionist. You put a better product out there and that kind of thing, but you can't let it get in the way of you putting something out there at some point, instead of hiding behind for perfectionism and never putting out anything at all. So I actually work in a hospital too. That's my day job. I work in EVS. And I do come across a lot of doctors and nurses that I do pay attention to know what they're doing, even though I kind of work in the background. So they don't actually see me but I'm watching them and I listen to them talk. I see them walk around and doing this all the time. What am I doing? What am I doing? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how it seems like the higher you go in this society, harder it is to put something out it's got to be perfect. And it's really not all that true. I understand being a doctor, like doctors, lawyers, things like that, they have to have their knowledge down. I get that, but I'm not cutting anybody open anytime soon, and I have to hire a lawyer. But besides that, it's really easy to not put something out there and hide behind that perfectionism.
I know that I went through my own bouts of both perfectionism and imposter syndrome. And I think to a certain degree, fear as well, just that fear of failure, especially from an entrepreneur standpoint. That's one of the things that people going self-employed, that's probably one of the biggest fears they have, is that fear of failure, that they're not going to make it and the business is going to fail. And if you've had it happen, that fear is going to continue to grow. But it's interesting because if you look at some of the most successful people in the world, they will tell you that they failed 10 times over, and that the success that you're seeing is the result of those failures that they went through prior.
Yeah, because we learn from our failures. And as long as we use what we learn from those failures in our next adventure, in our next thing that we do, we're constantly learning and doing things the right way. That's why I call FAIL, first attempt in learning. That's an acronym I use all the time in my podcast, because a lot of the things we're doing, we've never done before. So of course there's going to be room for failure because you've never done it before. But as long as you expect failure, instead of it sneaking up on you and, oh no, I failed, you can actually mentally take it in a lot easier and understand this isn't really a failure. It's just a learning process for us to use as entrepreneurs. So we finally get to that point where it's a success. So that's why I celebrate failure. Whenever something happens, I'm like, woo! It's a lot different than what most people are used to, because growing up in schools and whatnot, if we fail, we get enough on a report card and then bad things happen. So that's what we're trained as kids growing up into adults. But if we can unlearn that and understand that failure is actually a tool that we can use to get something that we want eventually, then we can take it in ourselves as a teaching tool.
I think that for a lot of people too, they put all their eggs in one basket, that if they don't get this business off the ground, if it doesn't succeed, then they lose everything. I always try to encourage people that I come across, and I do business consulting and coaching. You need to think along the lines of multiple streams of income, first of all. That way, if you have one that does fail, you've got something that will at least slow the bleed a little bit until you can find something to take its place. But I feel like that there's a lot of people that they just cash everything they have on that one thing. It's do or die. But it's funny because you hear some mixed opinions about that. I know Arnold Schwarzenegger was quoted as saying, "I never had a plan B. There was plan A. If you have a plan B, it's because you expect to fail." And there's other people that will say you always have a plan B with the anticipation that you're never going to use it. Do you have a perspective on that?
I'm sure you've heard burn the ships, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Burn the ship, so there's no way back. That's a little scary to me. That's why I'm still working, even though I'm doing my business on the side at the same time too, until something equals out to where I can lose one of my jobs and still be okay. It's the calculated risks that we take on a daily basis to make sure that we don't drop our heads underneath the water and drown. So we have to be careful with those risks. Now, it really depends on the person too. If
Yeah.
somebody can handle something like that, or they have, say, a spouse or something that makes an income, of
Yeah.
course I could quit my job and at least I have something, a little something coming in at one point or another. You don't want to sell the farm right away. The people that do that, it's scary, and some people do succeed in it. It just depends on where you are mentally.
Yeah.
And know that if this does not work out, that's just the end. That's it.
Yeah.
Some people like, I don't care if I go homeless, or I don't care if I can't make my car payment. I love this so much, I'm going to do it. It just depends on where the mental capability is, how your calculated risks will occur.
Yeah, because I know, like from my standpoint, I was homeless at one point in time, and the idea of going back to that, I don't ever want to go back to that. But I will get in there and fight and do whatever I got to do to make sure that it doesn't happen. I'm even going through a deal now where I'm looking at a potential change in what I get to do full time, and it can be a little scary and a little bit daunting to let go of that security for something that isn't necessarily as secure, but could be a lot more profitable.
Like I said, taking that calculated risk. Do I take the risk or don't? If I do, and I plan ahead
Yeah.
for this contingency, then I'm okay. I feel like I can handle that. But if I don't plan ahead and I burn the ships, like we talked about a little bit earlier, what's going to happen if, the bad guys get us? It's hard to put that metaphor together, but you
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The point is, you have to be ready for anything. You have to not just be ready for it monetarily wise, but mental capability wise.
Mhm.
You have to have the right mindset to be able to put that together and understand that this is the way it's going to be.
And I think for a lot of people, they tend to overthink it. It's referred to as paralysis by analysis. It could overlap into what we talked about as being perfectionism or imposter syndrome. It could be a number of different things, but you get to the point where somebody's just sitting there just rolling things over and over and over again, and then they never break free, and they're paralyzed in that situation because they can't just seem to let it go. I was talking about the paralysis by analysis. You have people that they overanalyze things, and it could be that perfectionism, it could be that fear, any number of those things combined. They analyze things to the point where they just don't move at all.
Exactly. And that goes right into number one, like I was saying, being a coward and
Mhm.
not wanting to put something out there because it's not perfect. Or number two, taking so long because you're trying to get it to look exactly perfect that it expires like bad milk.
Yeah.
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 So it's definitely interesting to watch the progression of different people and how they handle their perfectionism, how they handle imposter syndrome in those particular aspects. And I get to watch it in real time because a lot of the times I will actually 6 months later come back to my guest and see where they are in their entrepreneur adventure, with set goals up for themselves, and I'll hold them accountable. And then we'll come back 6 months later and see if they actually made those.
Yeah. With your people that have perfectionism, what is it that you think? Is there a commonality with those people and their backgrounds that you seem to, with the people that you've worked with?
A lot of these things come actually back all the way back to their childhood and how they were taught about perfectionism, about imposter syndrome, even though their parents were meant well for them.
Mhm.
At the same time, it's you want to be good, you want to be perfect because it needs to be right. Otherwise, nobody's going to listen to you or take you seriously if it's not perfect. That's not really
Mhm.
as true as it used to be anymore.
Yeah.
And the other one, get a good education so you can have a degree, so people will take you seriously. So you have this piece of paper that's signed because you passed a test. When in actuality, what we need to do is understand that our experiences that we have and what we do with our lives will counter any kind of piece of paper that I can get from any school saying, hey, I got 100% on a test. Here's a piece of paper with a signature on it.
Yeah.
I would rather have somebody that has real world experience in what I'm trying to accomplish and ask them for help because they've experienced it. It's real.
Let's get into one of your other topics that you have. It says how you find your zone of genius. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. I really did not before I found my zone of genius, I was a whole different person. I called him Old Jesse.
Yeah.
He didn't even know what it was. And I had this thing, what I called, my last name is Blount. I called it the Blount curse
Mhm.
because as I was going along doing what I do, I'd hit a real high goal for myself. And then I hit another one and things are going really well. Then all of a sudden, something really bad would happen and I'd be way back down to the bottom again. What I realized later after finding my zone of genius, what I was actually doing was sabotaging myself because I'm not used to having that kind of love and abundance for myself.
Yeah.
As long as I could accept that love and abundance, I will keep going up.
Yeah.
And the way I was able to keep going up was to find my zone of genius and work in my zone of genius as much as I can.
Yeah.
So if you want to find your zone of genius, you have to think about something that you love so much to do, you would be willing to do it for free and do it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's your zone of genius. And then you ask yourself, now that I know what my zone of genius is, how can I help other people with that zone of genius? How can I serve others
Yeah.
in that zone of genius?
Yeah.
There's 4 levels of your zone of genius. There's the zone of incompetence, zone of competence, zone of excellence, and zone of genius. Most people in the jobs, 9 to 5 jobs, they're either in their zone of competence or zone of excellence because they're doing a job that they know they can do and they know they could do it efficiently, but they don't love doing and they don't want to do it for the rest of their life. Even if they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or maybe even millions, who knows? They're
Yeah.
not happy. They don't love what they're doing. The way we counter that is finding our zone of genius. It's not so much as work, but it's play for us. And we're getting paid for doing it to boot. It doesn't get any better than that. How would you love to get paid and play at the same time? And that's where we really want to be. So if you could find a way to, number one, find your zone of genius, number two, find a way to help others in your zone of genius,
Mhm.
then you really have the 1-2 combination that's going to serve you and raise your love and abundance for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I know that there's people like me that I get bored and I will do something for a little while and I'll get to a point where I feel like, all right, I'm doing really good at this. But then it's kind of like you peak and I got to do something. I got to have a new challenge. So you look for either another level within what you're doing, or you try to jump to another ladder and try to climb that ladder, or you just go in a completely different direction just because you want the challenge of doing something you've never done before.
But if you find your zone of genius, what you're doing, you don't get bored.
Yeah.
That's just it. If you're standing on the ladder and there's a little ladder next to you, how hard is it really to get over to that other ladder? That's tough. You're going back and forth and you're like, okay, do I go over here or where's my balance? What am I doing? And when you're sitting in that balance, it's like Mr. Miyagi said, it's either right or left. You put it in the middle and you get squished like a grape. But if you find your zone of genius, this is the way that I love what I do. You won't get bored. You'll hit that flow state. That's where you're looking for, is to hit that flow state where you'll feel like you've been doing something for 10 minutes, but an hour has gone by. You hit something called Einstein time. That's what that's called. It's Einstein time because Einstein has a different way that we actually express time and a different way we experience time when we're with our loved ones. A short time is really a long time, but if you were doing something you hate, a long time is really a short time. It's yeah. And then when you're working in that zone of genius and you're experiencing that time, you're so efficient in what you do. You accomplish so many different things quickly And it's like nothing ever happened. I missed lunch, I missed dinner, but I'm just accomplished so many different kinds of things.
Yeah.
So for example, like my editing, when I first started editing my podcast, it took me 4 hours of editing to do a 1 hour episode of my podcast. Mind blowing. Now that I've honed my craft and understand that editing is one of my zones of genius, I can take an hour episode and have audio, video, clips, all that done in maybe about an hour and a half.
Yeah. What about people that you talked about where you self-sabotage? So let's break that down a little bit, because I feel like I've been guilty of that. I get to a certain point and you intentionally just blow everything apart, and then you're kind of left with the aftermath and you're like, why did I do that?
And the funny thing is, if you don't know how to look for it, you don't even know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. If you don't see that self-sabotage coming in, you could point that self-sabotage out and say, here comes this self-sabotage because this is what I've always done in the past. It'll sneak up on you and just tear your house of cards down for sure.
Yeah.
And I experienced that over and over and over again with old Jesse.
Yeah.
And once I realized, number one, that I even had a zone of genius or even knew what a zone of genius was, then I was able to say, normally I self-sabotage myself here, and I could see that coming. So now that I know it's coming, I can know how to avoid it, how to get around it, or if I do self-sabotage myself, how to get over it.
Yeah.
So it's all about being able to see that self-sabotage coming.
Do you have any tips on how to be able to learn to recognize that?
How to recognize self-sabotage. If it's something that you've done in the past that keeps happening over and over again, but you have to be able to pay attention to the notices. You'll feel it here. You feel it in your heart and you'll feel it in your head. This is something I know that I did positive now. This is normally when the self-sabotage comes. I have to look out for, oh, wait a minute. There it is. Yep. I knew it was coming because I was ready for it.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of, you really can't pinpoint exactly what it is, but it's a gut heart feeling that you know it's coming because it's what you've experienced in the past. And that way it will set you for your future because you'll have more love, you'll have more abundance. And the more positive energy that you put out there, the more love and abundance you'll get back. That's just reciprocity. That's just the way the universe works. And I like it.
And I think from that aspect, we're talking about business and being an entrepreneur, but there are people that they do that in their own relationships. They'll get to a certain point and then they self-sabotage their relationships, whether it's a business, friendship, personal relationship, they do the same things.
A lot of these things aren't just for businesses. You could put this aspect into just about anything in life, whether it be relationships, whether it be your job, whether it be your family or anything like that. It still works all basically the same way. And once you actually start doing it that way, more positivity will come to you because you're realizing that this is what's happening.
Is there a way to be able to make that mental shift instead of worrying about the next step? Is because it always seems to be reactionary. People are anticipating the bad thing that's going to happen, that's going to affect their business and going to knock them down or possibly cause them to fail, and be able to get past that to where you're only really focused on what's the next positive thing that's about to happen.
It's all about mind shift. Really, it is just understanding that if this is what you put out in the universe, this is what you're going to get back in the universe tenfold. So the more positive you put out there, the more positive you're going to get back. You have to be able to train yourself to be able to see these things and see these differences that you want changed.
Yeah.
Because if you don't see them, you don't train yourself to do it, it'll always be negative. Yeah. So what will you get back? You'll get negative back because that's what you're putting out there. Even if it's like a joke to yourself, you tell yourself a little joke and you put yourself down a little bit. Even though you're joking, your brain is going to look for what you tell it to look for. Mm-hmm. And the more negative stuff you put in the brain, the more negative that your brain's going to find because you're visually looking for it. I used to be a car salesman. And one thing that I always came across is whenever I bought or sold a red car, suddenly I'm seeing all the red cars all over the place. Same thing, like when my son was born, I wasn't really paying attention. Then all of a sudden, babies just flew out everywhere. Everywhere I looked, there was babies all over the place. Why? Because my brain was looking for babies because I just had a baby. And I never noticed how many were around me until I started.
There's a name for that. I can't remember what the name of the phenomenon is off the top of my head, but it's like, when you buy a new car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. And so it's always interesting because there's that awareness that's brought up. It's awakening in your brain to that thing. And now you didn't notice it before, but now you do.
And it's the same way when you are doing your entrepreneur adventure, or when you're talking to family, or when you're talking to your loved ones, or anything else like that. Whatever you're doing with them, you're going to see more and more of. Now, if you're being negative with them and not listening to them and not letting them talk and interrupting with them, you're going to see that more and more out there, because that's what you're training your brain to see.
Let's get into your other topic that you've got on here, brain health and how it affects your entrepreneur adventure. I think we're touching on it a little bit, but do you want to expound on that some?
Sure. I did some self-experimenting and trying to figure out how. That was another thing too, is I was in a brain fog. Old Jesse was in a brain fog. I couldn't think straight. So I was like, okay, what do I need to do to get out of this brain fog? So I started experimenting with different herbs, different fruits and vegetables and things like that, and which ones would work. Now, my family, my grandmother and my dad both suffer from Alzheimer's. So this is something I didn't want to happen to me, because eventually, if I don't watch out for it, it's going to happen to me too.
Yeah.
I realized that there are different types of foods and vegetables that we can eat that's going to improve our hippocampus. It's going to improve the different parts of our brains. Our gray matter is basically the roadways for our synapses. So we want the gray matter on our brain to be smooth. I started with blueberries. Blueberries was one of the first things that I started working with. And ultimately, what I found out was, if you eat any fruits that have any kind of edible skin, it increases your gray matter in your brain. And if you increase the gray matter in your brain, then your synapses can fire smoothly and cleanly. So you can have better ideas. You can have ideas faster, and you can grow better synapses.
Yeah.
Learning anything new grows synapses. And it's not just what you're learning, which is great. If you learn the guitar or learn to paint or anything like that, but those same synapses that you grew from that new thing can actually be new roadways for thought. Not just thought about painting or playing the guitar, but for everything else. So I started learning a different language. I started learning to play the guitar in my spare time, which is not a whole lot. But I think that's one of the reasons why, once I started learning and teaching myself podcasting, a whole new world opened up to me for thought. And it just went from there. I learned a new different thing, and it enhanced everything that I was doing from there. So being able to increase the synapses, the gray matter, and always learning new things.
One of the things that I learned as well is, being on the healthcare side, is that certain nuts and legumes, they look like the organ that it's supposed to help benefit. So like pecans, walnuts, those types of things, they kind of have that shape that they kind of look like a brain. And so they tell you to take those in because it helps with brain health. And then like cashews are good for the liver, those types of things. So yeah. The thing is too, is that with the brain, you've got neuroplasticity. I've worked in clinics where we've had people that have suffered from traumatic brain injury. I've worked with a lot of veterans and first responders, and they have explosions that have happened nearby. So they have the TBIs that go with it, and it causes scarring in the brain. And then the goal is to stimulate neuroplasticity, to where if you have a line of ants running in the line and you drop a rock in the middle of them, they kind of scatter. But the goal is to create a stimulus to where they realign themselves and go around the block and then reconnect. So I think a lot of times, if you combine the proper nutrition, give the brain what it needs, but also give the proper stimulus, which is, like you've alluded to, learning something new, but also being able to target specific areas of the brain as well. Our brain is such a dynamic entity that we still don't even remotely have touched the surface of everything that the brain could possibly do. The fact that you have specific areas of the brain that you can have one that affects how you talk, but then you have another one that affects how you interpret speech. And they're located in different areas. And being able to create the proper stimulus to be able to help those areas that have been damaged. For me, I've had my own share of TBIs and things that I've had to deal with. One of the questions I had was, did the brain fog kick in after COVID?
Oh, no, this is something that I've had for most of my life. And I didn't realize it was even happening until I started researching what my zone of genius was, and realizing this feeling, this expression that I have of myself is actually a brain fog. It's staying in the fog, but not realizing it's fog. I thought this was the road I was supposed to be going down, even though I couldn't see very well. But if you look at this road over here, there's no fog. I could just see the road. But I didn't even know it until I was introduced to what actually was what was supposed to be.
This seems to be one of the big side effects that people had with COVID. I probably have had some degree of brain fog. I attribute it to ADHD because there's times that I would just zone out. But after COVID, I did contract COVID, and it was like I had a veil thrown over my brain, and it doesn't matter. It didn't matter what I read. It didn't matter what I did. I couldn't remember. And I went through and found some therapies that were able to help. And I was able to finally, it was like that fog just lifted finally. I got on some proper nutrition, and it finally just lifted that brain fog up, and I was able to start operating again like I felt normal again.
If you understand you're in a brain fog, that's one step. At least you know now that this is something that I can change. This is something positive. I could turn around and make something positive out of it.
Yeah.
Even though if you do have brain fog or you're experiencing something along those lines, just know that there are steps that you can take to release yourself from the brain fog, whether it be nutrition, whether it be exercise, whether it be just reading a specific book that lights you up. There's ways around brain fog that you can do. You just have to be willing to see it.
So in your journey that you've had, both being an entrepreneur and the different aspects that you've been able to, what's been because I like to talk about leadership stuff and problem solving. What's been your experience on the leadership front?
Yeah, it's hard because I'm still new in the whole deal as far as entrepreneurship. What I can tell you is I'm an Eagle Scout.
Okay.
And yeah, I know that was a while ago, but while I was growing up, I was definitely a leader among men. I've got many awards being a leader, but that was the community kind of thing, which is great and all. But now I'm trying to expand on that and be a leader for more people.
Yeah.
So it's just getting the opportunity to do it. That's why I'm here with you, Dr.
Yeah.
Davis, because I just want people to know that I'm here to help.
Yeah.
And I think being able to help other people will bring more people up. And then you can understand that I am the leader that I am, or the guide. I think it would be more appropriate for me because I want to be your guide. I don't want to be your hero. I want to be your guide so you can be the hero.
No, absolutely. And when you're helping people, to a certain degree, it is leadership because you're trying to lead them through the processes that they have to be able to overcome and be able to show them the pathway. It's always interesting that when you look at the statistics, 78% of corporate employees highlight that leadership is the biggest problem, is what's holding their company back. But then leadership's the number one most recruited for speakers and continuing education for both company and at conferences. So there's a disconnect somewhere to where people are getting up and they're talking about leadership, but it's still a problem. I was talking to someone recently, and they said the biggest problem that they have, especially when you're dealing with corporate America, is you have the higher leadership. They hire these people to come in and talk about leadership, but in their mind, they're not hiring you to come and talk to them about leadership because they don't think they need it. It's they're bringing you to come in and talk to everybody else about leadership and to leave them alone.
What you got to realize, especially in this particular aspect, is there's a big difference between a manager and a leader.
Yep.
Okay. Managers will manage, but leaders will lead. A lot of people interchange those words, and they're not the same.
No,
they're just not. So the people that's why you have these people that say our leader is not that great, because your leader isn't a leader. Your leader is a manager.
Yeah.
The only way we could become a leader is rising by lifting others. The others will see that you're helping them, that you're willing to give them the extra 5-10 minutes to be able to talk to them and understand what your problem is, understand what your goals are, and then do what you can to help them achieve those. That's a leader.
And then you have a step up to where, because you have people that they're in a position of management, but they're not even managers. They're just hot title holders. They can't even manage. So there's a third degree of even worse there.
Whatever it is they're doing. So they give them the promotion, and then they give them another promotion, but they promote them so much and so high. Now they're somewhere they have no idea where they're at and what they're doing. So they have to pretend. And when they're pretending, they don't usually end up very well.
Yeah. Now, a lot of what you're doing is geared towards, because I like to talk about problem solving. You're trying to address problems for people. Is there anything else that you've encountered, or different types of problems, or some of your biggest challenges that you've had to deal with that you care to share?
Some of the biggest problems I've seen are not getting across the start line. Not doing that one little thing that you know you can do and you have the time to do it, but just not doing it because you're coming across one of the 4 hurdles of stop: the imposter syndrome, perfectionism, failure, and fear. It's so easy to get across the start line, but you have to do something. It could be something as easy as reading a book, listening to an audiobook, watching a YouTube video, something to spark that interest that you have in whatever it is that's in your zone of genius to move you ahead, because you're not going to be able to do anything unless you get started. There's no finish if there's no start.
Yeah.
So start something. Start something today. Start something right now. Wait until we're done talking. Then go start something. Even if it's a small little step, it's a step across the start line. And that's what I want for anybody that sees me in my podcast or videos, or sees this video with you, Dr. Davis, to know that it's okay to do something no matter how small.
Absolutely. Small steps will equal big steps over time.
Exactly.
All right. We're getting close to our hour, but I want you to be able to talk about your business, talk about some things that you want to do to be able to help people, and tell them how to get a hold of you.
Absolutely. You could find me just about everywhere at this particular point. But if you want all my social medias in one spot, you could go to stan.store/Skoob, and that's SKOOB. I couldn't put C because I'd get in trouble with Warner Brothers. So that's STAN.SCORE/SKOOB. If you go there, you'll find all my socials. You'll find my website, my YouTube. It's all there for you. I also do coaching. So if you find yourself not being able to get across the start line, I am here for you. If you find yourself going through imposter syndrome, perfectionism, failure, and fear, any of the 4 hurdles of stop, I am here for you to be able to get across the start line in your entrepreneur adventure. And if you want, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. My email is uepodcast2021@gmail.com. I will answer you. Don't worry. And please reach out to me if you all need anything.
Yep. And then we've had it scrolling across the bottom the entire show that we've got his website down there. So please go to his website, look him up, reach out to him. And who knows, maybe you can get on his podcast.
That'd be great.
Skoob, I really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us and sharing, and I wish you all the best. And I hope that you're able to leave some of your part-times behind so that you can enjoy your full-times and your wants instead of needs.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. You take care.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Approach. If you would like to be a guest or would like for Dr. McAlister to speak at your business or event, you can email him at info@drdavismcallister.com.